grants the supreme destination where the supreme person resides is known as Mathura. Now, you must know there are volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of references describing the glories of different tirthas. Prayag tirtha, this tirtha, that tirtha. So it's abundantly available in the Puranas. Tirthas are very, very special. And even amongst tirthas, the Mathura tirtha is very special. And here's one from Rupa Goswami's writings. Here's another from Rupa Goswami's writings. This is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in its summary form. In the Brahmanda Purana, it is said that all the results of traveling on all the pilgrimages within the three worlds can be achieved simply by touching the holy land of Mathura. Now that's pretty great glorification. Here's another. How wonderful it is that simply by residing in Mathura, even for one day, one can achieve a transcendental loving attitude toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, stimulation for ecstatic love. Stimulation for ecstatic love. Another reference from Mathura Mahatmya. They who, as a joke, serve Lord Hari during Kartik in Mathura will attain pure devotional service. What to speak of they who serve the Lord with faith and devotion. In other words, there's Abhas Bhakti, and one of the categories of Abhas Bhakti is joking, hasya, laughter, making fun, and even in a joking manner, serve Lord Hari during Kartik in Mathura. They get great, great, great benefit. I will live in Mathura. I will go to Mathura. A person who thinks in this way becomes free from material bondage. Even thinking, what to speak of going. Thinking, contemplating, meditating upon the glories of Mathura, free from material bondage. From Chaitanya Charitamrita, do not mix freely with the residents of Mathura. Show them respect from a distance because you're on a different platform of devotional service. You cannot adopt their behavior and practices. This is Prabhupada's advice about those of us that visit the Holy Dham, because he's writing for students from all over the world, and not being able to understand the mood and the practices of the Brijvasis and the Mathuravasis. Respect them from a distance, knowing that they're very elevated. Don't imitate. Don't adopt their behavior and practices. Now, Rupa Goswami teaches us that even more elevated or glorious than Mathura is Vrindavan. And here's some glorification of Mathura Vrindavan from a book by Jiva Goswami. Radha is the mistress of Vrindavan, and Krishna is the master of Vrindavan. In life or in death, Radha and Krishna are my eternal shelter. Pretty emphatic. From some 8 prayers, Yugalashtakam. Nectar Devotion reads, to perform devotional service means to follow in the footsteps of Radharani. And devotees in Vrindavan put themselves under the care of Radharani, the word is missing, in order to achieve perfection in their devotional service, or in the care of those who are intimate associates of Srimati Radharani. This is now, again, this is the stage of, beyond the stage of Raga Nuga Sadhana Bhakti, you already discussed that last week. This is now coming to the Bhava stage. The ideal place to execute Krishna consciousness is Vrajabhumi or Vrindavan, where people are naturally inclined to love Krishna and Krishna is naturally inclined to love them. Now, this is Prabhupada in a purport, and it's true. There's something very, very special about Vrindavan. What to speak of devotee practicing sadhakas that go to Vrindavan, even people that don't know. Of course, people that don't know may just see the external, the noise and the dirt and the, this and the that. But if they can see a little bit beyond that and can feel and perceive palpably the unique atmosphere of devotion to Krishna, it's there. And persons can see it, experience it, feel it. It's a very special place, Vrindavan. In the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev, interesting place to speak about Vrindavan, Prabhupada writes, in the spiritual world, everyone, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, Srimati Radharani, the cowherd boys, all are trying to satisfy Krishna. That is the real meaning of Vrindavan. Now, when we go, we're not Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, or Radharani, or cowherd boys. But going from text number 8, the stage of looking up to, becoming admirers of, and even following in the footsteps of such eternal associates who are always trying to satisfy Krishna. That inspiration, the impetus to be like that and to follow such persons is strengthened by being in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is the natural abode of the Lord, where there's no hunger, anger, or thirst, though naturally inimical, both human beings and fierce animals live together there in transcendental friendship. Isn't that nice? Chaitanya Bhagavat purport, that means it's Bhaktisiddhanta's language. Vrindavan is such a place. Vrindavan is such a place. We are meant for dancing and playing and walking and living with Krishna. That is our real position. That is Vrindavan. This is Srila Prabhupada giving a lecture in February 1976. I was there, I remember. And Prabhupada loved Vrindavan, and the topic may have been whatever the topic was, but quite often it would drift to where his heart was. So there he is in Mayapur. And this year, if I'm not mistaken, is speaking from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, and still he's glorifying his love for Vrindavan and our position in relation to Vrindavan, and encouraging us to look forward to visiting Vrindavan, because that came after visiting Mayapur. In Vrindavan, everyone is happy. This is nice. Bhaktisiddhanta. The calf is happy, the cat is happy, the dog is happy, the man is happy, everyone. Everyone wants to serve Krishna in a different capacity, and thus there is no envy. Now, envy is somebody has something that you want, but if one is fully satisfied by loving service to Krishna, then let others also be very happy serving Krishna in their capacity. And that's the Vrindavan mood. That's what he's teaching us. Supposing it's not the Vrindavan mood, then we'll find envy and competition and worldly emotion and behavior. But that's not Vrindavan. Vrindavan is such a place. This Vrindavan This is Vrindavan, the dust. Vrindavan dust is also Krishna. So, Araja Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tadama Vrindavanam. This is the verdict of the Acharyas. This is Prabhupada speaking in Vrindavan. This comes right after the class that was spoken in Mayapur, and towards the end of March 76. Now it's April, early 76. And this nice verse, Araja Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tadama Vrindavanam. Tadama Vrindavanam. It's the glorification of Krishna. It comes from a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam by Srinath Chakravarti Thakur. It's an often quoted verse. Where it comes from is not so often quoted, but here's the source. It's a Srimad Bhagavatam commentary. In fact, it's towards the very beginning of his Srimad Bhagavatam commentary. And he is indicating what is the message of Srimad Bhagavatam itself. And the best of the worshippers, Aradhya of Bhagavan, is the Vrajesha Tanayas, the gopis. And the abode of the Supreme Lord is Vrindavan. Here's some very nice statements that Prabhupada is expressing his desire for his followers and himself. I want that those who come here, Vrindavan, whether grahastas or sannyasi, behave on the level of the real Goswamis. Goswami means controlling the senses and always glorifying Krishna by various engagement in devotional service. Now, this is a letter. Now, Prabhupada, before Prabhupada left for America, a little background. Before Prabhupada left for America, Vrindavan was not a very popular tourism place. In fact, specifically, the place where Prabhupada stayed, this now amazingly developed Radha Damodar temple, there was a Babaji that lived at Radha Damodar along with Srila Prabhupada. He wasn't like on the ground floor like Prabhupada was. He was some living space up above. But he said when Prabhupada moved there in 1962 or 63, it was dirty, it was muddy, it was in disrepair. I mean, the altar was fine, but all of the area, when Prabhupada moved into his rooms, it was a wreck. It had been neglected, it was unkept, and it's empty rooms, but he had to spend a bunch of rupees just to make it livable. The point is, things were at a low point in terms of material facilities, and it wasn't a popular place. Vrindavan was not a popular place. And Prabhupada went to the West. Things happened. Many people started coming to Vrindavan, and it started to grow and grow and grow and grow. So here's a letter, 1974, where he is encouraging his disciples to go to Vrindavan. And he wants the devotees, his disciples in Vrindavan. But he also wants that they should behave properly, because others who are residents of Vrindavan will see their behavior and judge the whole Hare Krishna movement and Prabhupada based upon their behavior. So he wanted us to have proper behavior, controlling the senses, always glorifying Krishna by varieties of engagements in devotional service. So that's what our teachings are. He wanted us to live by and exemplify to others those teachings, along with coming to Vrindavan. Because it is Vrindavan, those who come should be exemplary, so that all the people of Vrindavan will see that we are actually following the 6 Goswamis headed by Rupa Goswami. Now, It's a different letter written on the same day, but Prabhupada is expressing essentially the same thing. He wanted us to participate in visiting Vrindavan, and he wanted us to be of good character and conduct while visiting Vrindavan. And here's his view about Vrindavan. Maybe you recognize this is a photograph of Prabhupada showing some of his earliest disciples to visit Vrindavan. I believe it was the Kartik month that looked like Guru Das directly behind Prabhupada. And he took the devotees on parikrama, but he also to around Vrindavan, but he also gave classes on nectar devotion, sitting on the backside of the temple. But here's Prabhupada leaving his rooms in Radha Damodar, and he writes, I lived very simply in Vrindavan, content to be in Rupa Goswami's presence. Now I have 100 temples to go to, but I still like it best. I like it here best of all. This is Prabhupada reminiscing on his time in Vrindavan. Now here's Prabhupada writing a letter from New York City. Here I am, sitting in New York, the world's greatest city, but my heart is always hankering after that Vrindavan. So they have t-shirts, I left my heart in Vrindavan, but heart was in Vrindavan, not just a t-shirt. And he wanted us to have a similar feeling of love and regard for Vrindavan, just as Rupa Goswami is indicating. Therefore, he made this nectar of instruction available to all of us. Now, here's a nice picture of Kusum Sarovar. Vrindavan is revealed in the heart of the sincere devotee. In reality, it is not on any map, nor is it part of any country. He's just saying the same thing that we know, but he's saying it in a very powerful and interesting way. Vrindavan is eternal, and what's on the map is not things eternal, it's temporary things. And even this nice Kusum Sarovar structure is not permanent, it's not temporary. At a time that didn't exist, at a time it will deteriorate. But the transcendental Vrindavan is not on any map. It's of the spiritual world. If we but come to the point of Krishna consciousness and learn how to love Krishna, the whole world will become Vrindavan. Now this is a long book. You see, this is page 293, the big book, Vrindavan Days. So Prabhupada had special love, and he spoke often about Vrindavan, and some of this is recorded in this book, Vrindavan Days. This is not a photograph, it's a painting. The Dwadasya Aditya Tila, the hill, is pictured, and on top of the hill is the Madan Mohan Temple, a very beautiful and a classic scene, Vrindavan Dham. And the commentary is written by Prabodhananda Saraswati. If one lives in the earthly land of Vrindavan, touches it, sees it, travels to it, meditates upon it, bows down to offer respect to it, sings or hears about its glorious qualities, carries its dust on one's head, or has any relationship with it, then this purifying earthly Vrindavan will carry him to the supreme abode of Vrindavan in the spiritual world. Prabodhananda Saraswati loved Vrindavan. He was a wonderful writer, very poetic, and his poetic expressions glorifying Vrindavan. There could be many, 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 but this is Vrindavan Mahimamrita, one of his books. Nice glorification of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Prabodhananda Saraswati. Now just two more. There's Govardhan Hill, having glorified Mathura and Vrindavan. Now let's hear about Govardhan Hill. This is from Vrajariti Chintamani. It's a book written by Vrindavan Das Thakur. I'm sure you'll appreciate just here the sweet glorifications. Govardhan Hill is like a flag of intense sweetness placed on the opulent land of Vrindavan. As the king of mountains, Govardhan Hill offers very pleasing royal service to the young prince of Braja. The rocks of Govardhan Hill are many kinds of splendid jewels that provide thrones, couches, and other kinds of furniture for Sri Krishna, the supreme monarch of all nectar mellows. Govardhan Hill's beautiful forests and caves are Krishna's nectar pastime palaces. Not places, but palaces. Each one perfect for the supreme good fortune of his beloved and her friends. Govardhan Hill's trees and vines serve Sri Krishna by offering him blossoming branches with sweet fruits and flowers filled with honey, nectar, and fragrant pollen. As you can see, he's a lover of Vrindavan, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The red, vermilion, yellow, and other colored pigments of Govardhan Hill decorate Lord Krishna's transcendental body for the pleasure of his beloved gopis. The musk, that's the fragrance, musk, left by the deer, as well as the kunkum, camphor, and aguru, naturally produced by Govardhan Hill, are all used to give a sweet fragrance to the transcendental body of Lord Krishna. There is a pleasant grove of sandalwood trees on Govardhan Hill. Although snakes are generally attracted to sandalwood trees, no snakes ever come here. Or if sometimes a snake may come to it, it is not poisonous. Or if sometimes the poisonous snake comes, its poison is automatically counteracted, and it can do no harm. As the best servant of Lord Hari, Govardhan Hill has made this wonderful arrangement for the Lord's pleasure. The rocks of Govardhan Hill are all precious gems. Some are sapphires, some are emeralds, some rubies or crystals. They provide the perfect backdrop for Lord Krishna's pastimes. As you can see, he's a lover of Govardhan Hill. The peacocks dance enthusiastically. The bees and cuckoos sing melodiously, and many other birds chirp a rhythmic accompaniment as they all gaze on the service to Lord Hari done by Govardhan Hill. The best of Lord Hari's servants. This is this Haridas Avarya phrase that we've often heard. Of course, the gopis spoke it, but he's confirming. The land around Govardhan Hill in all directions is filled with many lakes, groves, and other charming places of Lord Krishna's pastimes. Many lovely streams flow from Govardhan Hill onto these lands in all directions. The Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally enjoys pastimes on Govardhan Hill. He personally lifted Govardhan Hill with his own hand to protect his cowherd associates. Who is able to describe the glories of Govardhan Hill, the best of Hari's servants? Radha-kunda and Syama-kunda are Govardhan's two love-filled eyes, because it nourishes the gopas, gopis, and Shurabhi cows with Lord Madhava's sweetness. It shines with the name Govardhana. Vardhana means one who expands. Govardhana. Syama-kunda and Radha-kunda are two great floods of the nectar of beauty. They are two great oceans of splendor. They are two beautiful roots from which the sweetest devotional service grows. They are two jewel mines of love. They are two seeds from which grow the jewel vines of transcendental pastimes. How did they become two splendid and nectar-sweet lakes? By seeing these two lakes, Radha and Krishna believe they are present in them. It is as if they directly see each other there. The wise say that by approaching these lakes, one directly approaches Radha and Krishna. Now, isn't that the sweetest thing? I mean, just hearing the words of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur going on and on like waves, and there's no end to these waves. It's a river that doesn't stop flowing. He has such love for Govardhan Hill. Where is that intelligent person who is unwilling to serve this divine Radha-kunda, which is situated at the foot of Govardhan Hill? Of course, this is a verse taken directly from the text 9. And here is the season where it's rainy season, and the sangam upon which those structures towards the middle of the photograph are taken, they're completely flooded with water. And in the lower season, other than the rainy season, that the lakes subside, and there's a walking path between the two. There's a nice history of how Radha-kunda and Syama-kunda were discovered or rediscovered. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally rediscovered when visiting the place. He took bath in a pool of water or a body of water in the middle of a rice field or wheat field, and declared this is Radha-kunda. And following it, Raghunath Das Goswami made it his residence, and by a gift from a wealthy person visiting, he used that wealth to excavate what we now see as Radha-kunda and Syama-kunda. In the photograph, look a little bit to the left of the center, and you see this structure jutting out into Radha-kunda, and that's the sitting place of Janava. Right behind the sitting place of Janava is the Gopinath temple, and the far end of the Gopinath temple is the Bhajan Kutir of Haridas Thakur, Raghunath Das Goswami. So, wonderful place, Radha-kunda. Some very nice history, and because of time, I'm not going to go through all the history. Now, final in text 9 is the importance of Radha-kunda. There's the Sangam that has those same structures at a different time of the year. It's not flooded like the other photograph we saw. Srila Rupa Goswami has emphasized the importance of Radha-kunda because of Lord Chaitanya's desire to find it. Now, he wanted to find it because of his love for Radharani. Therefore, persons with transcendental intelligence will try to reside there. Of course, you have to be transcendentally qualified. The importance of Radha-kunda cannot be realized. This is Prabhupada's words in Nectar of Instruction. It's very interesting. The importance of Radha-kunda cannot be realized by other Vaishnava sampradayas, nor can persons uninterested in the devotional service of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understand the spiritual importance and divine nature of Radha-kunda. Now, many writings are there glorifying Radha-kunda, and they're not going to be experienced. I mean, to some extent, one may appreciate the sweetness of those descriptions, but to understand and experience them, that's another story. Now comes a series of questions. We see this nice painting. It's like the cover of Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam. Down in the right-hand corner, that's the Mahatattva, on which Lord Mahavishnu is reclining, and so forth and so on. And beyond the universes and beyond this Mahatattva region, there's the spiritual sky with Vaikuntha planets and Goloka Vrindavan planet. In Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's this nice quote indicating that Goloka Vrindavan is the topmost region of the spiritual sky. Tat Upari Goloka Vrindavan. So one might ask, that's interesting, but how is it that one location is higher than another? They're all in the spiritual realm, so on what basis is this distinction made? Someone might ask that question. And here's a very nice painting of the cowherd boys in Vrindavan playing. Of course, the cows are just onlooking, and the boys were just playing. And it looks like they're having some kind of challenge, one group of boys against another group of boys, etc. Everything in the spiritual world is a spiritual expansion of Satchitananda. Everyone there is of the same potency, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. The relationship between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his servitor is Chinmaya Rasa. Krishna and his entourage and paraphernalia are of the same Chinmaya potency. So this sounds like it's all the same. So then the same question. How then is one place of transcendental Leela higher than another? The same question being asked again, just as it's being asked in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So here's a nice painting of Krishna's rasa dance. And this is so much cherished and revered in Vrindavan and in the world. Krishna experiences pleasure in his relationships with his devotees. On the basis of the amount of pleasure Krishna experiences, the rasa is higher or lower. These are just very understandable teaching. So now, what's the highest rasa? There's the rasa dance. The highest rasa is the conjugal rasa. This is a Pushkar painting depicting Krishna with the gopis. And by the side, there's a nice jeweled place where it looks like Balaram is playing upon the flute. In any case, it's the Madhurya rasa. Although Krishna's unparalleled beauty is the topmost sweetness of love of Godhead, his sweetness increases unlimitedly when he is in the company of the gopis. Consequently, Krishna's exchange of love with the gopis is the topmost perfection of love of Godhead. Now, we're just trying to embellish and amplify Rupa Goswami's Nectar Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, text 9. I mean, the painting is very interesting. It's showing water flowing like down a waterfall, coming into this lake, like Radha-kunda. And here's the gopis enjoying pastime with Krishna in Radha-kunda. There they are, Radharani particularly splashing Krishna. Krishna's got a nice smile, he's enjoying. Radharani splashing him. Although the son of Devaki, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a reservoir of all kinds of beauty, when he is among the gopis, he nonetheless becomes more beautiful, for he resembles a Markata jewel surrounded by gold and other jewels. In other words, Marketa jewel enhances all other jewels. So Krishna becomes even more attractive. The all-attractive Krishna becomes more attractive because of his feelings of love being with the gopis. There's another rasa dance image, and the text that is indicated by this. Let's see. When Krishna engaged in the Rasa Leela in Vrindavan and played his flute on Sharat Purnima, all of the gopis of Vrindavan came. And there are many different categories of gopis. Each gopi couldn't see Krishna dancing with the other gopis. And each thought that Krishna was only dancing with her. Radha, however, could see that Krishna was dancing with so many other gopis, and she became angry because Krishna should have been enjoying with her. But he was enjoying with so many other gopis. So to pacify Radha, Krishna left with her, and the rasa dance ended. As leaving with her demonstrates her superior position. Prabhupada explaining the supremmost excellent position of Radha. Of course, the gopis are non-envious. One's playing with Ganga, and others gathering flowers, and others just appreciating the love that Krishna has for Radha and that Radha has for Krishna. This is our last slide. When Krishna had the rasa dance at Govardhan, he doesn't invite so many categories of gopis. So the rasa dance at Govardhan is considered higher than the rasa dance in Vrindavan. I don't know if you knew that. So Vangshivat is where Krishna called all the gopis. And that's rasa dance, a very special rasa dance place, rasa stali. However, he also performed rasa dance at Govardhan, and we're hearing he didn't invite everyone. And so it has even a special flavor. At Govardhan, Radha left the rasa dance and Krishna followed her. In this pastime, Radha's exalted position is even more clear than in Vrindavan. When Krishna can't find her, he becomes very upset, and so the rasa intensifies and is thus higher. That is to say, there's something very, very, very special. That's three berries special about the rasa dance that was performed at the southern end of Govardhan Hill. Many of you have done parikrama around Govardhan Hill, and when we do parikrama around Govardhan Hill, we visit the two kunds at the bottom, and very near there is the rasa dance place. The Mukut Shila is where Balaram saw that rasa dance, and he was so stunned by the amazement of the moonlit night where rasa dance was being performed that his crown fell off his head. So, very special place, rasa dance at Govardhan Hill. And of course, that's at the other end, and the northernmost end is the place of Radha-kunda and Syama-kunda. So in the upcoming verses, 10 and 11, we're going to hear even further about Prema Bhakti. So this verse 9 is discussing both Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. And verses 10 and 11 focusing on Prema Bhakti. The Rupa Goswami is taking his reader in a very simple tour through stages of bhakti from Shraddha to Prema in very short, powerful, packed verses. Now I'm looking at my clock. My clock says we've been going for about 50 minutes. And I think we should end 53 minutes or so. I don't know what your schedule is, but I have a busy schedule here. I'm in Beijing, by the way. So let's see if there's some discussion, and we'll take some time for questions and answers.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. We are extremely grateful to you. In spite of your busy schedule, you have spent your valuable time with us. We consider very fortunate, just like Parikshit Maharaj says, Sukadeva Goswami, that I am Dhanyatama. You are the most fortunate just by coming in contact with you and your association. And today is a very auspicious day also, so beginning of Purushottam month.
Yes, it is. Special day.
Yes, Maharaj. So you choose so the beautiful day. And just like you mentioned that Vrindavan is very happy because of Krishna's presence. So your presence in our life makes us so much happy and satisfied. And we are experiencing so much blissful also. And earlier we are discussing nectar of instruction. I was telling that whatever we are lacking, Guru Maharaj will supplement those things. So we need not to fear because Guru Maharaj with us. So by hearing this, our commitment to move forward is increasing, or we are developing a taste actually. Today's class is so captivating, inspiring, and enlightening and uplifting experiences.
Well, it's not me. It's Rupa Goswami. Please, let's give credit to Rupa Goswami because that's where the credit goes.
We are extremely grateful to him, Maharaj. I ask other devotees, they can ask questions. Sadhu Sangananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj, for giving your association to all of us, Maharaj. Please accept our humble obeisances at your lotus feet. Maharaj, I was just trying to understand what is the difference between this material grading system and spiritual grading system. Like we heard from you that in the spiritual world there is no duality. Then what should be our consciousness to understand this prioritization, spiritual prioritization? This the Mathura is better than.
Well, Prabhupada made it very simple. He made it, there's perfect, more perfect, most perfect. There's variegatedness in the spiritual world. Why not? So, perfect, more perfect, most perfect. And the explanation we heard, it has to do with Krishna's happiness. And the criterion is based on Krishna's happiness. Is his happiness incomplete? No, it's perfect. And then more perfect, most perfect. So these are transcendental variegatednesses within the realm of absolutes. And that's the starting point of your question.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Got it.
Tulsipati Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at the dust of your lotus feet. Guru Maharaj, I am trying to understand that how to understand this, that Radha-kunda is most secret place where to live, and we are generally instructed that we can stay in Vrindavan. So how to understand this, Maharaj?
Well, I mentioned it. I just touched on it, but I can spend a little more time. On the one hand and on the other hand. On the one hand, it's the most exalted, etc., etc. On the other hand, we're not so qualified. And there's some other things on the other hand, and some other things on the other hand is we won't understand the practices, the conduct, the culture of the Vrindvasis that live there. And then something else on that side of the pan scale is there's some persons who it's not our business to evaluate or to speak of criticize, but they do things that are not what Rupa and Sanatan and Raghunath Das Goswami did. And, we're not so qualified to see that and experience that, etc. It's not recommended for us. Now, at what point in time will be recommended? When we're highly qualified. We're not there yet. So what do? We visit and pay obeisances many, many, many times. Sprinkle water from Radha-kunda on our head and pray to Radharani. And we do simple things short of residing at Radha-kunda and Syama-kunda. And pray for the mercy of the Goswamis, because they're the ones that can help us become qualified, whether we reside there or reside wherever we reside. Prabhupada did not, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not, others did not encourage, they discouraged, although Rupa Goswami is saying words that sound very encouraging. Live there, it's the best. But because people are not qualified, they can easily make offense and mistakes and be misled and have problems. So visit with reverence and from the advice of our acharyas, don't jump where we don't have the qualification. So visit, become purified and qualified, and keep it like that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
This is Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. Guru Maharaj, I had heard that there are 3 types of Vrindavan. One that is in the spiritual world, the other which is there in our material world, the Vrindavan, and the third one is the one which is revealed in devotee's heart. So, so is that true, Guru Maharaj? And when you say internal cultivation, which was one of your theme in last Vrindavan Yatra, so we are supposed to basically through sadhana and sadhana practices invoke that internal Vrindavan in our heart.
Like this other question, in the realm of absolute, there's variety. So one describing the variety of Vrindavan Dham, you've done it nicely. And access to that, of the 3, the access is most approachable wherever we may be, is internally. And supposing you're even there physically, or supposing you're in the spiritual world like Krishna Loka, the internal is essential. So that's where your attention can and should go. The Vrindavan consciousness is something that's an internal cultivation. With proper understanding from our acharyas, proper caution, not making offense, etc. And hearing the glories like this Mathura Mahatmya or Prabhupada Prabodhananda Saraswati's glorification, Vrindavan Mahimamrita. Hear from those great personalities, or, Raghunath Das Goswami, Rupa Goswami, our Goswamis. So we hear from them, and that's a major part of the internal cultivation. And then with that being carried in the heart, when you visit, you'll have a very special experience. Bells will start to ring and you'll connect what you heard with the place and your experience. That's the internal cultivation dimension. Now, according to the clock, we've used our 1 hour. Time flies, having a nice time together. And all that has happened is words of Rupa Goswami and other acharyas commenting in their own way, their own inspiration on the words of Rupa Goswami. But that sound vibration is all of the same nature as Vrindavan itself. We get association through sound and hearing and hearing and hearing, and gradually that sound becomes what you're carrying inside. That's the internal cultivation point again. So I think we can end the class, yes? How does that sound?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. They are very happy and satisfied.
Good. So it's been interesting being in Beijing. Just a little sharing before we end. Right now, I happen to be in a place that the architecture and et cetera, although it's in Beijing, it's traditional Chinese architecture and culture. The owner of the place came to visit me yesterday. I don't know what the worth of this project is, but it's, took years and years and years. It's very interesting and very, very soothing. I don't feel like I'm in Beijing. I feel like I'm in traditional China. And he gave me a book that's about 3 pages thick, and it's all handwritten. And it's the traditional culture of China that's given to young people so they can internalize cosmology and character and history and, not just identification with the body, but higher values and wisdom, etc. This man was like going on and on and on. So today I'll be giving him a book that does something similar but different. It's a book by Krishna, Krishna Kshetra Swami. Krishna Kshetra Swami is a PhD from Oxford University, and he has visited China, and he has some disciples in China, and he's written a book for cross-cultural, handshake. India and China are not loving each other these days, government-wise. But this book is explaining the similarities, the harmony. He calls it something bridge between yoga culture and ancient Chinese culture. And there's lots and lots and lots and lots of similarity. So I asked the man, if I gave you a copy of that book, would you like? Oh, yes. But he's a cultured man. And I don't know what's going to happen after he gets the book, because I can't read the one he gave me because it's all in Chinese. But there's room for cultured people to get a sense of their culture and getting a sense of other cultures and feeling warmth towards other cultures, while at the same time having profound appreciation. This man has profound appreciation for traditional Chinese culture. And it shows through his character and his speech and his mannerisms. He's a very cultured man. So I hope he'll enjoy reading the book. So that's it. And moving on to the next thing over here. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
His Holiness Prabhupada Swami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.